Hi there. My name is Jennifer Morgan. I'm the executive director of Greenpeace International, and I'm delighted to be part of the Milano Green Forum's Green Voice program. Great to be here with you. Well, I think first, Greenpeace is just one part of the global climate movement, and we try our best to support all those who share our values and our vision for a safer, greener, and healthier world. We hold those in power to account. We share information, we organize training for activisms, and we take part in nonviolent direct action. We want to connect and are connecting more and more with workers, with religious organizations, human rights groups, and with those fighting against all forms of discrimination. And across the world, including in Italy, we've seen a shift from climate denial, which is just no longer possible, right? Given the extreme events that are happening almost daily in the news around the world, to greenwashing, climate delay, and inaction about the urgently needed green transition. Governments and polluting industries are actively promoting false solutions and dangerous lies to avoid addressing the green transition. And Greenpeace is calling this out as well as holding those blockers to account. The gas as a climate-friendly fuel and carbon offsetting narratives are just a typical example. In Italy, both are championed by Eni, that Italy's oil and gas giant, which has already been found guilty of promoting biofuel with palm oil as, quote, climate-friendly solution. This is completely bogus, and offsets are an old, unworkable idea from years ago in the Kyoto Protocol. Authentic solutions to climate change and biodiversity degradation have been known for decades, and they're not limited to the energy sector. So we need to urgently switch, as the last IPCC report recalls, from a destructive greenhouse gas emission pathway to stop environmental degradation, for example, deforestation driven by the food sector or overfishing, and start a full-scale recovery of our natural resources. We are part of nature, and we only protect ourselves by protecting it, not exploiting it. This green transition, well, it needs investment with a cost met by the sectors most responsible for our planet's destruction. And this is known as the polluter pays principle, and it means that the costs do not fall to citizens. For decades, there's been this global trend of pushing the climate action load on the most fragile elements of our societies, when we should be on a path where climate and environmental justice give back rights and dignity to the many most impacted by our current destructive model and take the opportunity to create new development and jobs thanks to the green transition. This would make the approach to the transition not just green, but just, and meaning that no one is left behind. So in Italy, just as an example, the national energy scenario to stay below 1.5 degrees C provides for some 165,000 jobs by 2030 in comparison to 98,000 with the current governmental plans, which heavily promote fossil gas. In regards to your second question about that the ecological transition necessarily comes also through the actions of the individual, what do I do for the environment in my daily life? Well, first, as part of Greenpeace, I strive to challenge this narrative that puts the burden of a green and just transition on the shoulders of individuals. This is a well-known strategy promoted by polluters to divert attention away from the real stuff, from the industries, the governments, the financial and economic institutions that are most responsible for the climate emergency. That being said, the most important step, in our opinion, really is for people to react to this narrative, to act with nonviolence and determination to stop the polluters and their enablers from wasting precious time. So being active, hopeful, and courageous now is the best gift you can give to yourself, to your family, to your kids, and to your future. For me, that can mean taking nonviolent direct action to try and stop the import of oil into a large harbor. It can also mean making sure that I eat less and better meat and dairy. I'm a vegetarian, but I think that's another thing that I personally do. And also, just being out in nature, cycling wherever I can. All of those things that keep me healthy and my own balance, so that I can also bring a positive balance to the earth. And lastly, you ask, do you think there is someone or something today or from the past that we can draw ecological inspiration from? What a great question. And I would say that, the current situation is really unprecedented, and we must be aware that the global scale of the present crisis urges us to go beyond the past. When we talk about transition, we mean to get into a better future, not coming back to business as usual or the polluting past. But, there is a lot to learn from Indigenous peoples and forest guardians across the world. Because for centuries, Indigenous and traditional communities took care of nature through ancestral conservation techniques. Traditional conservation ethics were capable of protecting biodiversity and biodiverse species in particular, and the environment in general, as long as the local communities had a stake in it. They made sure that the benefits derived from nature would still remain for future generations, and it was a good balance to maintain. The world's 370 million indigenous people are only around 5% of the total population, but they officially hold 18% of the land and lay claim for far more. Their homes stretch across 70 countries from the Arctic to the South Pacific, and they include many of the planet's biodiversity hotspots. And unfortunately, as of today, these communities are not empowered to keep safeguarding our forests. Greenpeace is convinced that we must support these vulnerable communities, and for everyone who can, to take action to stop climate and biodiversity disaster. There is no green future without peace, and our mission has always been nonviolent, following the footsteps of the Quakers, Mahatma Gandhi, to the people of Norway during the Nazi invasion of World War II, to the array of peaceful activities being carried out today by courageously dedicated young people. Thank you very much.